Howdy, y'all. We are in my downstairs. Used to be a bar. We never used it as such, but when we bought the house, they had a bar and an entertainment section down here. We've turned it into a baking station, as I like to call it, where we do a lot of our baking and where our kombucha sits. Video coming up on that very soon. So, yes. So today, what we're going to be doing is creating a basic dough recipe that my family uses on a weekly basis, and we use it for pretty much everything. So we use it for buns, we use it for rolls, we use it for our sandwich bread, okay, all those types of things. It's a very basic recipe that's super easy to put together, and it has a wide variety of uses, which is why we use it so much. Of course, there's dozens and dozens and dozens of different types of breads, from dinner rolls to different types of sandwich doughs and artisan breads and all those types of things. And we do bake those as well, but this is our staple. It's what we use on a daily basis. There's one other quick recipe that we use if we just forgot to make bread and we need to make bread in like an hour because we're having sandwiches for lunch or something like that. And maybe the missus will show you that one day, because she usually does that when I neglect to make bread when I have the time. But this recipe is super easy. It actually is the Bread Baker's basic dough recipe. And like I said, you can use it for all different types of things. We're going to be using, just to show you the different uses, I'm going to be making 2 sandwich loaves and and a set of dinner rolls, like hamburger buns, that we will set up, and I'll show you both of those. We do use bread machines for this recipe. You do not have to. You can, of course, make the recipe, knead it yourself, let it rise, all that type of stuff. But we just use the bread machines in this way just to mix it and to have the rise time, so that we get a consistent mix and a consistent rise. And you know, for the hour and a half that it's doing that, it's not taking up counter space in our kitchen. I don't have to sit there and knead it for 15 minutes for each set of loaves that we're doing. Really saves us time and just sort of makes our lives a tad bit easier. One of the reasons why we bake our own bread is because in the long run it can be cheaper if you're buying your stuff in bulk. Not always. If you're buying 5-pound bags of flour at the store, it may not be as cost efficient once you get everything that you need, all that type of stuff, the time you put into it. Because we always talk about money, but we never talk about time. And of course, time and convenience is money, and that's why when you go to the grocery store or the gas station, you know, you're sometimes willing to spend $3 on a bottle of water because it's convenient, right? So convenience does have a price, and so you got to think of your time when you're doing these types of cost analyses when baking and gardening and homesteading in general. But my big thing about bread and why I like to bake my own is, one, because I know where it's coming from, I know what ingredients are going in and all that type of stuff. But it's more about the simplicity of the bread itself. You know, this is a bag I have here from a grocery store. This is a non-GMO verified, perfectly crafted artisan thick slice multigrain. And I can count probably 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I mean, you see what I'm saying. There's over 24 ingredients already in this ingredients list, right? And that just seems like too much. And you have things like monocalcium phosphate and soy lectin and ascorbic acid and all these things that are just unnecessary unless they're going to be sitting on a shelf for 2-3 weeks or whenever it is that however old the bread is by the time we actually see it in the grocery store. So you can see it there probably. Look at all those ingredients, right? So the bread that I'm going to make only needs, let me think here, 6 ingredients. There are some optional ingredients that we're going to put into it just to make it a better quality bread that's more like store-bought with the soft and all that type of things. So we're going to get started. Right now, you don't normally have to do this, but we're going to be using coconut oil. And I just have, it was warm down here, or cold down in my storage room. So my coconut oil had solidified. So I have some coconut oil in there. Like I said, this is the Bread Baker's recipe. And It's very simple. It's very basic. Basically finishes in about 2.5, 3 hours. You're really only working for about, I don't know, 20 minutes of that, if that. And it's going to give you a high quality wheat bread that you can use for a myriad of uses, and is very basic and simple and easy. And you're going to eliminate, whatever is in this bread that you don't want in, which is normally a lot of things. So first thing we're going to do is, and I will link this recipe below so you can have the access to that as well. But first thing we're going to do is get some hot water, or warm water, I should say. And that's going to be 1.5 cups of warm water. And I'm actually making, like I said, I'm making two different batches. And on the website, what you'll see on the website, you'll see that there's different bake times and rise times for the different uses, so you can take a look at that. We will be making, like I said, 2 sandwich dough loaves, and in the other one, we were going to be making about 12 not dinner rolls, but hamburger buns, sandwich buns, those types of things. So you start off with your warm water, okay? You're next going to put in your yeast, and that gives it time to activate. In bread machines, you always want to put in your liquids first with the yeast, because you want to make sure that you separate the yeast from the salt. So it's a tablespoon of active yeast. So we're going to put that in there, in each one. Okay. You're going to have 1/3 cup of your oil. Like I said, I'm using refined coconut oil. You can use a different oil if you prefer, but this is what we like to use in our family, is refined coconut oil. So I'm going to actually let that cool off here for a second. I will do the honey first. Just mix this yeast up a bit, just to sort of get it activated and get it working. So it's 1/3 cup of honey. And that's going to give some food for the yeast, some sugars. It's also just going to add a bit of sweetness to the bread and make it more delicious. Honey's just fun, It's such a magnificent, cool. I mean, if you think about it, it's like what? I guess it's bee vomit. But hey, it tastes good, and it's good for you. So I'm using a raw, unfiltered wildflower honey. Unfortunately, I do not have my own set of bees. I would like some, but I do not believe the wife would ever let me have them on our small plot of land that we use. Because, it'd probably cause problems. But I always wanted to have my own honey. If I can make it, I want it, I want my own cows, I want my own sheep, I want my own everything. But on just over half an acre, that's kind of hard to do. So we make do with what we got, and we make the best of it. So I'm going to add in, that's still too warm, so I'm going to leave that actually there. Like I said, you want to put your liquid, so it's 1/3 cup of honey, 1/3 cup of the oil, and I'm going to let that cool down just a bit, just because maybe the oil's not so bad. It's just the glass. Let's see. I don't want to put this in too hot and have it kill the yeast. That would be unfortunate. Oh, okay. So yeah, it was just the glass that was a little warm. So that shouldn't be too bad. That's not very warm. That should be fine. For the yeast, but not fine for my fingers. I would probably recommend using something different other than a toaster oven to fractionate your coconut oil if it goes solid on you. But that's all I had down here, so that's what I started using. So, make do with what you got, like I just said. So you got 1/3 cup of honey, you got 1/3 cup of your oil, 1.5 cups of your warm water, your yeast is in there. The only other liquids we're going to add to that is an egg. So grab an egg. Now this egg is optional. You do not have to put it in there. It does help a little bit add some protein, and it probably helps with the rise a bit as well. But that is optional. So far, the ingredients that you must have are water, yeast, some form of sugar. I would say honey is probably good best. So there's our wet ingredients, okay? So now we're going to start adding our dry ingredients. And the dry ingredients are, this is a wheat bread. And the bread bakers will always recommend that you grind your own wheat. And if you do that, more power to you. We have, I don't know what, 80 pounds, 100 pounds? We have a lot of pounds of wheat berries that are in our storage. And we are saving those for, because they last longer when they are not ground in the berry form for years and years and years. So we are saving those for times of need, or when we run out of our prepackaged flour, maybe we don't have access to that anymore. Of course, if you want to grind your own wheat, it is going to be more nutritious than the stuff you're going to buy at the store. Obviously, that has a cost to it because you have to find a way to properly grind the wheat, those types of things. So, like I said, you know, as much as you can, I want to do things in the best way possible, like grinding your own wheat, right? But if you don't have the things to do so, do not be afraid, and don't let anyone tell you that, you know, you can't use a store-bought ground flour. You can. It is going to feed you. It's going to serve you. Is it going to be the most nutritious? No. Okay, and maybe I'll do a video on that, on the idolatry of superior eating and those types of things at some point. But of course, it has merit. Use the healthiest stuff that you can, but don't, you know, stick your nose up at, you know, pre-ground flour because it's just awful and useless. And, it's going to kill everybody. Not saying it's perfect, but it does work. So this is, I think I'm using King Arthur stone ground whole wheat. Okay. My store that I buy my flour from locally does not have good choices for organic that aren't extremely expensive, and I have 8 mouths to feed. I don't know if you've ever fed 8 mouths, but technically I have 10 if you include me and the wife, right? And I eat like 2, so that's like 11. So we got to be careful about how we spend our money. So I am okay with sometimes, obviously organic is going to be better, but, you know, don't be a snob, right? Okay? So this is just plain old, use what you want. I'd prefer organic if we could, you know, always get that in a cheap way. And, you know, I don't have the land to grow acres and acres of wheat to feed my family. But I probably will grow some wheat, but that's probably more going to be for the chickens. I haven't really decided yet. We will see. Stay tuned for that. But 4 cups of flour. 4.5 cups of flour are what's going to be in the in this. So if you want to go ahead and sift it or weigh it out or those types of things, you can. I'm pretty basic. I'm just going to kind of level it off, right? That's 3. This is 4, okay? Maybe I'll add just a tad bit more just to cover it, right? So that's 4 cups of flour, and then you'd add your salt. So the only ingredients that you have to have are your water, yeast, sugar or honey, flour, and salt. A little bit of salt. Make sure you put your salt at the end on top of your flour so it doesn't kill the yeast and when it comes directly in contact with it. The optionals are the egg. That is optional. Sorry, I forgot your oil. Your oil is also an ingredient. So that's 6, right? Water, oil, yeast, flour, salt, honey. So 6 ingredients total compared to like 26, right? So there you go. You only need the 6. Now there are some optionals. The egg is going to add some protein, maybe a little bit of rise. That's going to be obviously more nutrients for you. The other things that are optional are going to be some flaxseed. And the flaxseed has lots of different benefits. Of course, it adds some omega-3s and some fatty acids and some oils into it. When you're putting it into big breads, there's a lot of different reasons you may do it. It helps with water absorption. It can help with fermentation and rise times, those types of things. You can look up the benefits of using flax in baked goods. Depending upon what you're baking is what, you know, why you want to do it. Obviously, it's also going to add nutrition and sort of just a more rounded wholemeal sort of nutritious bread. So you want to do a third cup of that. I don't believe I have a third cup down here, so I'm just going to sort of wing it. That looks like a third cup to me. So it'll be a third cup of your flax meal, and then you're going to add in your salt. Okay, and it's if you look in the, I think it's a teaspoon of salt. So put in about a teaspoon of salt there, and that'd be good. If you're hand kneading it, you can mix it up all together, right? Let it sit for a bit, just so it kind of gets an initial, it gets the yeast moving, right? Maybe 10-15 minutes, okay? Then you want to, after you mix it in, then you'd want to let it rest a little, and then afterwards come back and then knead it, okay? So with the bread machine, it's going to sit for an hour and a half. I'm going to put it in there and it's going to start. I'm going to go ahead and do the other one, right? And get those going so they finish at about the same time. But that's it. That's the meal, okay? And this is going to, actually, that's not it. This is it could be it, okay? There's one more additional option that you can put in here, and that is Vital Wheat Gluten, okay? So you don't have to put this in there. Vital Wheat Gluten, it's only a teaspoon. You can get it in a big old bag. It's relatively cheap for the amount that you're getting and the amount that you use. And what that's going to do is it's going to add some additional gluten into the dough, right? Which is going to allow the wheat bread. Okay, so let me break down a little bit of baking science here for you. So the reason that white bread is usually softer and gets better rise, isn't as dense, is because there's no germ in it, okay? And that germ, when you crush it up in this wheat flour, okay? So those little tiny brown specks, those are like little wheat daggers to the gluten. The gluten hates the germ, okay? And the reason for that is because they have these sharp little edges, and as you're kneading it, and you're stretching out and you're forming those gluten strands, right? Those little wheat germ shards come in there and start slicing and dicing all those strands, and they break apart. So they don't have the ability to stretch and to form as well. And so that's why you have a denser, kind of more coarse crumb when you use wheat bread without some additional gluten. The Vital Wheat Gluten gives you some additional gluten so that you have some more gluten in the bread in order for it to create better strands, and that the formulation of the gluten is better. It can stretch more, and then it creates a fluffier, more well-rounded sandwich bread type texture that you're used to from the grocery stores. So we're going to add in that. Do not put too much in this. For a while there, for some reason, I was just throwing in a tablespoon. And when you put a tablespoon of Vital Wheat Gluten in, it's like one of those volcano science experiments, right? Where you put the baking soda and the vinegar and it goes, well, that's what happens to, the bread. It just like starts, it's like that dinosaur toothpaste. What's that stuff called? Is that what it's called? Elephant toothpaste? Anyway, yeah, look that up on Google. It's, whatever. So we're going to do a teaspoon of this. Not a tablespoon. Okay. And there you have it. That is the bread. Okay. Put it in the bread machine. Turn it on your dough cycle. It'll run. Or if it's like yourself, mix it up. Let it rest. Knead it for about 10 minutes, right? And then let it rise for about an hour. Okay. Or until it doubles in size. And then we will go on to the next step from there. Follow me. Okay, so we're back, and our dough has been rising about an hour and a half. It's shrinking a little, and that's okay because we're going to do a second rise. My other one rose a little bit too much. I don't know if I left it in there for too long or added too much yeast or what happened there, but that is okay. We will work with it. And so we're going to dump it out, and I will do the bread loaves first. So we use, I think these are 8.5 USA pans. You don't have to butter these. I've never really had these things stick at all. They have these little rivets in them, or divots or grooves that allow air to get in there, so they release really easily. So essentially what you're going to do is put a little flour on the countertop, punch out all your big air bubbles, okay? And then I'm going to weigh it just so I can make sure I get 2 even loaves, right? So we just want to form this into a ball so it fits on your scale. Okay. So we have about 39.82 ounces there. Okay, so we're just going to cut it as a clean 40 and go with 20 ounce each. Okay. See what this is. That's 20.9, so obviously the other one's going to be a little short. 20.2, still going to be a little short. That's 19.75. This should be about 19.9 probably. This is 20. So that's good enough for me. So we want to make them, turn them into logs. And so you really just want to go ahead and shape them, pat them out, wrap them. There's lots of different ways that you can shape a bread loaf. Of course, you want to try and end up shaping it to the size and length and shape of your pan, just so it works a tad bit easier. Okay. Trying to make it level as possible, even as possible on each side. So there you go. There's one loaf. Do it again on this side. I love working with dough and making bread. There's just something so it's I don't want to say relaxing, but fulfilling. I think that'd be the word. There's just something fulfilling about getting a really good loaf out of the oven that you made from scratch for yourself. So I'm going to set these aside for now, and those are going to rise for about an hour. So set them in a warm place for about an hour. They're going to rise. Obviously, just watch them. And usually it's about an hour. They're going to double in size. And then you're going to bake them at 350 in the oven for about 35 minutes. So you can check that in the recipe as well, and you'll see that. But that's what we'll go ahead and do with those. Like I said, very easy. The dough comes out very easy to handle. I'm not sticky. Just a little bit of extra flour, and I was good. I was able to work with it very easily. So it's just a really good loaf, really good dough to work with for various different things. Now this one kind of exploded, and we'll see if I can work with it or how they're going to turn out. I will be making hamburger buns or sandwich rolls. We sort of use it the same for both. Set that aside. Add a little bit of extra flour. Obviously, you want to make sure you punch out your air bubbles. And since we're going to be cutting this one into 12, about 12, probably 12, depending upon the size this is, and usually get about 12 or 13 rolls out of it. And we'll go from there. So we just want to sort of do a little bit of punching and kneading so it's easier to work with. Okay. Obviously you have your scale here. It usually works out. This usually is about, if that one was 40, this one's probably 40. So I'll go ahead and weigh it just so I can get a good number. And this one came out to be about 42.8. That could be I added extra flour, maybe a little bit extra water, maybe the egg that we used was slightly bigger, etc. So 42 divided by 12. Right, that's what, going to be 3.5? Yeah, 36. Yeah, so 3.5 ounces per roll. If you don't have yourself a bread knife, get one. This thing changed my life when it came to bread making. So this is 3.9, so we're just going to pull a little bit off. 3.5. Perfect. And then you just want to shape it, roughly shape it into the form of a roll. Now there are hamburger pan rolls that you can get, but we just sort of turn it into a ball, set it on. You can put parchment paper down. I probably will, to be honest, because sometimes, depending upon the pan, it's going to stick, and then you have sort of like a bad bottom on your roll. Still edible. You can still eat it. Still tastes fine, but just doesn't store as well. It doesn't look as well. All that type of thing. 3.74, so I'm just going to pull off a little bit. Double check. 3.5. So like I said, this is going to make about 12 rolls. So I will go ahead and do that and go from there. Alrighty, so we got our 12 rolls right there. We're going to let these rise for about 45 minutes or until they double in size, and then we're going to bake them for around 12 to 15 minutes at, I believe it's 425. I'll double check on that. And you can as well in the recipe. Forgot I had this in here. 400 for 10 to 12 minutes. Depending, obviously, you have to do with your oven, but it's 400 for 10 to 12 minutes, and it's 45-minute rise time on these. So the way it works out for us is we make these together, 2 loaves and our 12 buns. We let these rise for 45 minutes, put them in the preheated oven to 400. By the time these are done baking, these are out of the oven and these are done rising. So we take these, put them directly into the oven after it cools down a little, and then we do that for 35 minutes at 350, and then we're done. So that's how it benefits us. We make rolls, we make bread a couple of times a week, and we go from there. So I will get these rising and in the oven, and you can take a look at them right now. Okay, so there you have it. There's about the size of the rolls that you want. I'm going to go ahead and put those in the oven, 400 for 10 to 12 minutes. So here we are. Got the rolls out of the oven 12 minutes later. Okay, and like I said before, our bread is just about done. So I'm going to wait till the oven cools down just a couple of minutes. Then I'll put the bread in the oven for about 30 minutes on 350. And we'll have nice 2 loaves to eat from tomorrow. But that's it. That's the rolls. That's how simple it is. They're cut great. Good, soft crust on them. It's great. And there you have it. There is the sandwich loaves. Okay? So works great for sandwiches, for eating, for making dinner breads. There's our rolls again. And look at that. They're great. So it's a very easy loaf, very easy dough recipe, and you can use it for multiple things. And that is why we love it so much. So get cracking.